Now, if you're just joining us and you have no idea what this whole story is about, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital upgrade saga, let me try and break it down for you so that you can understand where this whole thing is coming from. So, Deputy President William Ruto is being linked to quote-unquote controversial 28 billion shilling scandal that is linked to the upgrade of the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. How did this all start? A businessman, Herbert Ojwang, went before the National Assembly's Public Investment Committee, and in that committee he made serious allegations against Deputy President William Ruto. According to him, he said this was a scandal to mint money for an individual, and he asked that committee to look into that particular upgrade. And he said he was the brains behind the upgrading of this particular hospital, and he said that plan was later taken away from him by Deputy President William Ruto. While meeting the Public Investments Committee as well, he produced an audio recording between him and Deputy President William Ruto, and he says it is a recording that outlined that he had been asked to pull out of the entire deal, basically being coerced to pull out of that particular deal. According to Ojwang, the original cost of this particular project was 17 billion, but somehow it is now at 28 billion shillings. So he says this is a money-minting project for someone he does not understand who, and to quote him, he says the balance from the 28 billion will go to someone, but I do not know who it is. Ojwang also told the Public Investments Committee that Ruto later proposed a new hospital at a different site, which resulted to the hiving off of 200 acres. That is one side of this story. Now, the Ministry of Health, through the Cabinet Secretary James Macharia, has come out to defend Deputy President William Ruto on this entire deal. According to CS Macharia, he says the hospital approached Deputy President William Ruto and asked him to help them look for funding for the expansion of this particular hospital. Now, Deputy President looked through the papers of this upgrading project, and he questioned how the 17 billion shilling was arrived at. In particular, he questioned how the contractor was sourced. Was it single sourcing? How did we get here? But his main concern was the fact that someone was quoting 2 billion shillings to put up a car park for the hospital. That was one of his contention in that particular project. Now, the hospital, through the Ministry of Health, looked for additional land that is 200 acre piece of land. Apparently that was part of 800 hectares of land that belonged to Kenya prisons. They got the approval of the cabinet, and as we speak, that land has been hived off, fenced and surveyed. Health Cabinet Secretary James Macharia says the Ministry of Health floated an international expression of interest for the establishment of another hospital in the newly acquired 200 acre piece of land. The evaluation is ongoing, no tender has been awarded, and no costs have been determined as yet. So in other words, the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Health says the 17 billion or 28 billion contract does not and has never existed. So, Deputy President William Ruto has been quiet all along, even as this was unfolding. Today, he spoke out, and this is what he had to say.
How can anybody in their rightful senses want to spend 17 billion Kenya shillings to renovate and to do some extensions in a hospital? How can anybody pretend that they want to spend 17 billion shillings without due process, without a competitive tender process to know whether Kenyans are getting value for their money? How can anybody tell us that they are going to build a 2 billion shilling parking in Eldoret? 2 billion shillings in Eldoret can buy you 5,000 acres, not a 5-story parking. How can anybody in this time and age tell us that 17 billion shillings is for renovation and, I don't know, extension? In my very considered opinion and judgment, and that is what we're going to do, 17 billion shillings can build a brand new referral hospital. I am the one who stopped the project, and I have no apologies to make to them, because the project was fraudulent, shady, and corrupt from the beginning, and it has no place under the Jubilee administration.
Deputy President William Ruto there giving his side of the story on the upgrade of the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret. This is a story we're keeping an eye on for you, and of course we'll let you know the developments therein, because this is definitely going to develop further.